Hello everyone and welcome to my Templar bomb build for this Scalebreaker patch. This build is one heck of a Templar build. It is not only just a bomb build. Now you can make adjustments to the build, and in the video I talk about what you can do to make it better at bombing larger and larger groups, or if you want it to be more and more playable, better at just an upfront fight, but still have that massive AoE bomb potential. And Templar is one of the classes, especially this patch, that can do a bomb build quite well while still being great in an upfront fight. So I really enjoyed playing this build. It was a lot of fun, honestly. The Godplar version of this spec, because they're very similar specs, was stronger. I'll say that. It was stronger, it was faster, but this version had the ability to blow up a group of players like the Godplar just couldn't. Where the Godplar was struggling to put all the bodies down, this one is having them all hit the floor. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this build video. I hope that you guys enjoy the footage of this build. And without further ado, let's get right into it. To begin, we are a Wood Elf. I don't think Wood Elf is the best bet for this build. I don't think it's a bad choice because, well, on a Templar like this where we're focusing on really high damage, especially wanting to get that bomb, Wood Elf just doesn't offer as much damage slash Magicka sustain as some of the other classes do. However, because we are a Templar, our stamp sustain is still very important. Wood Elf gets the penetration and it gets the bonus speed, so it's still a good option just because we need all these other things in our build in order to bomb on the Templar anyway. So ideally, you do want to go for a good Magicka race here, but like I said, if you don't have the best race, it's not the biggest deal. Wood Elf, thankfully, isn't too terrible of a choice. Now, taking a look at our max stats here, we've got 34k max mag, 20k HP, and 14.4k stamina here. Now, the max mag on this build at 34k, this is, yeah, pretty decent. You should have quite a bit of max mag on this build, not too high over 34k. We actually have a little bit more max mag than we should, and that's because I don't have the infused jewelry on that I would like to have, and that's just due to kind of gear constraints that I have on the live server. So ideally, you'd have around 33k max mag on this build and a little bit more spell damage, but, you know, that's just how it goes. But you do want to have a pretty decent amount of Magicka on this build. It is going to be a decent amount of your outgoing damage. The max HP is very low. We don't need a huge amount of HP on the Templar. With the changes to Eclipse, we're running Living Dark for the defensive bubble. Living Dark, very important. Even when we're bombing, we've got to have that defensive aspect. Even when it immobilizes opponents as they attack back, that's very useful when we're bombing. It's just more CC, and it allows us to continue to apply pressure longer than we would normally if we weren't stunning things. So the low HP on the Templar is honestly okay as long as you keep the Living Dark up. It's kind of like a damage shield. And then the 14k stam here, we are a Wood Elf. If you were a proper Magicka race, you'd have around 12k stam. I would recommend you have at least 11k stam on a Bombplar, and that's just because, well, unless you want to die every time you deliver the bomb, you need to have a bit of stamina to break those stuns, to roll around, and get out of there after you go for your smack. Now, taking a look at the sustain on this build, we have got really awesome sustain. Now, this is where you guys can kind of make choices for this build yourself. I am still running the Amber Plasm set on this build, even though we're running a bomb build. And I have run Bombplar in the past, and I did use Amber Plasm on it in the past as well. And the big reason that I did is because both sustains are very important. Templar has the big issue not with having a powerful bomb, because it definitely has a really powerful kit, even outside of Proxy Debt, to deliver a huge AoE smack. The issue with Templar is that it's slow, and it can't get in and out effectively as some other classes can, especially something like a Magicka Nightblade that can just stealth in, deliver a huge smack, and then get back out. So the Templar has to make up for that by, I think, having a little bit more sustain and building a bit of speed into it as well. Even if you're going to go for something like a Bombplar, having that additional speed goes a long way because it just allows you to deliver a bigger smack easier with your build. So that's why we've had these bigger sustains here. Now, if you don't want to run Amber Plasm on this build, it will still function well, but you know, I gotta say, you'll hit a little bit harder, but you'll have less opportunity to deliver those nice big smacks because you won't have the same amount of sustain. So that's why I say the sustain is fairly important. Even if you're going for a bomb build, we meet that big damage threshold that we have to get in order to get those vicious death explosions. Now, let's take a look at the spell damage on this build. We've got 3,365 spell damage on our front bar here, and we, of course, have the infused weapon on our back bar too, so we get up to around 4.2k spell damage on our 34k mag on this build. So our damage is a little bit lower than the Godplar was, and we are playing a bomb build. So that can sound a little alarming, but don't worry, our damage is still very high. We've got minor force, minor berserk. We have the penetration from light armor as well. So we've got a lot of damage going into this build. But the big thing that makes bombing work in this game is honestly the Vicious Death set. It's what causes the chain reaction to explode, and we need to make sure we have enough firepower to deliver enough AoE and single target pressure so that at least one target dies and our other targets are getting lower HP. And that's how we're going to deliver that nice big bomb. So I think we have definitely enough firepower here. Something I want to note is that if I was running ideal traits on this bad boy, we would have a lot more spell damage on it. I would even take off some swift traits that I have on my jewelry here, and our spell damage would go up by well, actually quite a bit. It would go up by at least 400 or 500. So we'd get a nice big spell damage pad if I changed out a few traits here. So you could actually run this build with more firepower than the Godplar version of this spec, and it would just allow you to close those bombs easier, but you would give up the speed for it. I would recommend you try it with and without the speed and decide how you like it yourself, and what works better for you. Now our spell crit, of course, buffed up. We are at 51% on this build. Really nice on our front bar. We don't need a massive amount of spell crit. 51 is just great for PvP, great for our healing, great for our damage. Our Vicious Death set does not crit, but we need crits to get it to initially explode anyway, because we got to deal that big damage. So there we go. Now, the physical spell resistance on this build is not super crazy. We've got 21k spell resist and 19k physical resistance with 2,600 crit resist. If I had ideal traits on this build, I would have more crit resist. I would say, especially for the Bombplar, 3k crit resist, so at least 6 impen on your gear is the way to go. And, of course, putting those CP in, too. The physical spell resist, you don't need to have insanely high either. We get a lot of healing power on this build, and especially in the dot meta, just having higher healing power tends to just do better this meta than having a lot of bulk. So, yeah, we don't need to worry too much about the crazy high bulk here. Our Eclipse honestly saves us in the tank department. Eclipse is a very powerful defensive skill, and it lets us get away with running such a squishy build. Now, taking a look at the Mundus we're running, we have got the Apprentice here. Now, for the Bombplar, I actually would say you should probably switch this out to the Lover and go for the spell penetration, because that will up your outgoing explosion damage on your Vicious Death as well. I have the Apprentice because it helps with the healing power too. It's up to you guys what route you want to go here. If you want to have a little bit more defense or a little bit more offense. Like I said, this build has no issues closing the kill. We have a ton of firepower on it. So it's not like if we go the healing power route, we're giving up a huge amount of damage. We can definitely go that way and get that defensive bulk if we want. Now, for the food on this build, we are running the Ice Cream, and yep, just a fantastic food. We get max mag and mag recovery and a massive amount of both. Really great for outgoing damage and sustain. For the Bombplar, this is exactly what we want. Now, if you aren't comfortable with running really low HP like this, and you don't want to take my word for it that Eclipse is a very good skill and it lets you get away with this kind of shenanigans, you can definitely switch this out for the Witch Mother's Potent Brew or the more expensive version that gives you health recovery too. Totally up to you guys if you want to do that. We have a lot of mag sustain on this build to be honest, so you can give up a little bit of sustain and you should be okay. Now, taking a look at the consumable that we're using for our potion here, it's the Essence of Spell Power, and this is definitely the way to go for the Templar. We need both these buffs. We don't get these buffs from anywhere in our kit, so yeah, we need to get the Major Sorcery and the Major Prophecy here, and of course that mag recovery is really nice too. Now, taking a look at the gear we're running on this bad boy, we have got the Grothdar set on to start. And Grothdar is one of the best options for this. You could actually go Scoria too. Scoria has a little bit more burst than Grothdar, but I think Grothdar is just going to be better at consistently landing you those big explosions, because it will be up more often and just dealing more AoE damage more often than Scoria will. So it's kind of up to you between these two sets. You definitely don't want to go Slimeclaw here. We did run Slimeclaw on the Bombplar in the past, and that was for that minor berserk buff, but we get that from our Fighter's Guild skill on the front bar now, so we don't have to worry about that anymore, which is really great. So we can go for a helm set that just adds more AoE pressure. I like Grothdar more than Scoria, again, because we get the max mag on the one piece, so a little bit more outgoing damage there too. Now, the next set we have is Amber Plasm, and I did mention this a little bit earlier. Amber Plasm is kind of the choice set here, and I said that my experience with playing a Bomb Templar build is that you still want it to be functional in a fight, because if it isn't functional in a fight, you have a very hard time delivering that bomb, because Templar is just slow. They don't have things like stealth. We have Mist Form, but we need the sustain in order to get in and out, and that's why I think a set like Amber Plasm is so great for this kind of build. It is very offensively minded in the 2-3-4 piece. We get max mag, spell crit, and spell damage, and then just that massive amount of sustain. It allows this build to function better. Now, if you want to just hit harder, or you want to have bigger bomb potential, I would say you can switch this out for the Spinners set. The Spinners set is definitely going to be the pairing set for Vicious Death, which is the other set we're running, and that's because of the penetration that it gives. Just like the Mundus choice to go for the Lover, it's just going to give us bigger bomb potential overall, giving us that nice big boy damage. Now, the next set that we have, guys, is, of course, the Vicious Death set, and this is the set that makes Bombplar really work. It makes bombing in general really work. We get spell damage, max mag, and spell crit, very offensively minded 2-3-4 piece again, and then when we kill a player, they violently explode for 2,150 flame damage to all other enemies in a 4-meter radius. Now, a 4-meter radius isn't super huge, and this set is only really effective when you do a lot of AoE damage to quite a few opponents that are stacked up on top of you. But in PvP, especially if you play solo, it's very easy to get your opponents to kind of stack on you just for a few moments, and you can deliver a nice big smack with your ultimate or something. And yeah, just some good timing and good positioning, and you can really utilize a set like this. Now, we're not running Procstet to pair with the Vicious Death set. You could run Procstet on this build if you want, but like I said earlier, Templar has a massive AoE kit on it, so we don't actually need Procstet, because Templar's kit is so great for bombing in general. Procstet just isn't a necessary skill, and I actually don't like Procstet on the Templar because of the lack of stealth. Without having stealth, it makes it very hard for us to time and land a good Procstet explosion on a group. Having the more kind of on-demand burst AoE skills that we have here just functions better for the Templar bomb spec, in my opinion, because we can land those bombs when we need to, as opposed to have to wait and try to get that perfect explosion. We can just kind of take the fight and take it as it goes. And I think that's a little bit more valuable, to be honest. It just allows you to close the kills easier, and you guys will see in the footage when the bomb goes off, it really explodes, and we kill a lot of players with it. So it works very well. Now, for the last set that we've got here, I have the Ice Staff of the Seducer. If you guys are not a Wood Elf on your Magicka Templar, which you very likely aren't going to be, I am going to recommend that you actually run a 2-piece stamina recovery here. Just any crafted staff that gives you 2-piece stam recovery is going to be the best way to go, or just any staff that you have already that's a frost staff and gives you the stam recovery. And I say that because, well, on the Frost Staff, mag recovery on the 2-piece isn't the best. I just have it because I'm a Wood Elf and my racial passives give me the stam recovery, so I just pad a little bit of extra mag recovery on this part of my bar here. The stamina recovery, though, just on a Magicka build is going to be way more effective, because that will continue to tick while you're blocking with your Frost Staff and while you're in Mist Form on your back bar. So I would highly recommend you go that route if you are a good race for this build. Now, for the traits on this build, guys, we have got Infused on the Frost Staff. Definitely the way to go. You will see on this build, especially when we're going for the gap closer to kind of position ourselves to get that nice big AoE smack, we always lead it with the Frost Staff Light, partial charged heavy attack, or fully charged heavy attack. And this is very important because we get that infused proc. It's just going to give us a lot more outgoing damage and healing power if things don't go our way. So it's very important that we do this. Now, on the front bar, we've got Nirnhoned and Precise. I think Nirnhoned and Precise is the way to go here. Definitely Nirnhoned on the front weapon because we're dual wield, and dual wield Nirnhoned main weapon is just superior to any other trait here. Precise, you could actually go sharpened here again. And this is where I've talked a little bit about this build, is I didn't go the high penetration route, and it was still very effective. I went kind of the better healing route, so it would just be better in a straight up fight, and then be able to take advantage of that very strong Vicious Death proc. Vicious Death is already so strong, we don't actually need to go all the penetration. The penetration is more just to up all of our outgoing damage as well as the Vicious Death. So it's up to you guys if you want to go for the sharpened here versus the Precise. Both are great options. Of course, this is dual swords for that outgoing damage, 5% additional damage. That will affect our Vicious Death as well, which is super awesome. And then for the enchant here, we're actually running the vulnerability poison. And this will only affect one target, but yet again, because we're playing a bomb build that is relying on a target to die to get the Vicious Death explosion, this is very important. It allows us to have better single target pressure when this poison procs and just get a bigger Vicious Death explosion, or the Vicious Death explosion to just go off in general, whereas it might not have if we didn't get that extra little bit of damage. Now, for the jewelry, guys, I have 2 Arcane and a Swift, and we've got Magicka Recovery and Spell Damage, Spell Damage. This, I would actually say, especially if you're a good Magicka race, you don't want the Mag Recovery here because your Mag race will take care of that. Go full spell damage and full infused on the Templar. Templar gets major minor spell damage buffs. Like, I played this build without the highest damage potential that we could have, and it was really awesome. But I'm going to tell you guys, like, what I would do if I could get the ideal traits for it. Full infused with spell damage here on probably a Breton Templar would be the way to go. And that's just going to give us so much outgoing damage here and so much healing. If you go the full infused route, then here you can definitely go for all that sharpened and penetration with your other stuff, and you'll still have really awesome healing power on this build. Now, for the gear, guys, I would actually recommend full impenetrable. You can go one well-fitted if you want, but full impen on this build, I think, is the way to go, just because we want to have the most amount of durability possible when we're delivering the bomb and in our jabs, and full impen is going to give us that durability. The one well-fitted is just nice for the positioning to get in and get out. But otherwise, yeah, the crit resist is definitely the way to go. For the enchants on this bad boy, we've got 4 Hacky Joes and 3 Max Magicka enchants. I would recommend that you go for actually all Tri-Stat Hacky Joes, unless you feel like you really want to risk it with really low HP. I think we do need to have at least 20k. Below that is pretty shenanigans, I'm not going to lie. So it's kind of up to you guys what you want to do here. You could go full Max Magicka and just glass this build out, kind of like I said, and you'll hit like probably 12% harder than what we're hitting in the footage here, but you know, you give up that durability and the sustain, of course, for it. So it's up to you guys how you want to do it, but those are my thoughts. Alright guys, so let's take a look at the abilities that we're running on this build. So I'm going to give you guys a heads up. If you've watched the Godplar build video, we have no changes to the abilities we run on this spec. Both of these builds are very AoE focused, and yeah, so we didn't have to really change out any skills. We are not running proc stat, like I said, and I'll talk more about that when we get to the place where I would switch in proc stat if you guys really wanted to use it on this spec. Now, to go over the passives really quickly for you guys, you want all of your Templar passives for this build. For your dual wield passives, you actually only need the Twin Blade and Blunt passive. You do need 50 dual wield for it, but that is the only passive that's really important for the build. For your Destruction Staff passives, I would recommend that you take all of your passives here. You especially want the passive that makes your Frost Staff block cost Magicka. Very important, just to give you that strong block on your back bar. For your armor passives, you want all your light armor passives. You want your medium armor passives up to the middle point here. Your heavy armor passives up to the middle point here. Your world passives, Vampire, you're going to want to take all of your passives except for the Savage Feeding and the Blood Ritual. The other ones are important. Even Dark Stalker. We do have the potential to deliver from stealth with a bomb on this build, but like I said, we have issues getting back into stealth once we've attacked, so it's not something super reliable, but having that passive there does definitely help with a spec like this. Our Undaunted passives, you want definitely both of these just to give you the max stat bonus across the board. The Psijic passives, you're going to want all of them except for yeah, actually, you want all of them. You definitely just want all of them. They're going to be great for this build. And then your racial passives, of course, whatever race you are, you're going to want them regardless of what build you're playing. Alliance War passives, you want them all. And then finally, your alchemy passive, you want your medicinal use to make sure you get the maximum duration on your potion effects. So starting off on our front bar here, for the first ability, we have got Puncturing Sweeps. And we'll buff up so you guys can see the tooltip when we buff a bit here. 2.9k on the Puncturing Sweep. Not a bad amount of damage. This is your primary spammable for the build. It's very important that this heals us as well, and it of course can proc our Burning Light. Yeah, once we deliver the bomb, the puncturing sweeps is what we're going to use to kind of stick out the damage. We want to make sure that we have our eclipse up as well when we go into the sweeps, just to ensure that we can stick on that bomb and deliver as much damage without having to kind of back off. So really, really good skill, I think, for what we're trying to do on the Mag Templar here. Now, moving on to the next one, we have got Toppling Charge. And Toppling Charge, I think, is another very important skill for this build. The first big thing is that it's our gap closer and our stun. So the gap closer is important because it allows us to just get on top of a group, get behind them, get positioning ourselves, you know, just wherever we want to be to deliver the biggest AoE smack that we can. So we've got to have the gap closer to just make that happen. The stun, of course, is going to help us close a kill, especially against a single target. Very important that we have this stun. Even when we're bombing the group, if we stun the target we're trying to kill, it just allows the damage to go onto that player, and we get a better chance of getting the Vicious Death explosion off. And then finally, this also sets your opponent off balance when you use it on them. That's going to be a beautiful damage increase against your opponent. So yeah, really nice stuff. And not only that, but when you set an opponent off balance, if they have the CC immunity already and they're off balance and the immunity goes away, you can then stun them with the partial charged heavy attack. So that's really nice too, but it's not super applicable for this build. We don't have the off balance on dodge roll, so there you go. Now, taking a look at the next ability we have, Camouflaged Hunter. This is here only for that passive slot, the Minor Berserk, but it's very important. 8% damage increase is massive. That's going to be an 8% damage increase to everything, our outgoing damage from all of our abilities and our Vicious Death set. So we got to have this here. All we have to do is land a crit from our opponent's flank in order to get this buff for 5 seconds. Now, our next ability is Honor the Dead. This is the primary heal for this build. Of course, it's going to be absolutely fantastic. We've got great offensive stats. We got a nice 14k tooltip on it. Big heal for the Templar, man. It restores a majority of the cost if your HP is low when you use it too. So yeah, really, really good stuff. One of, if not the best, single target heal in the game. And on this build, you can expect to get around 15k crits on it. When we have around 20k HP, that's pretty much a full health heal most of the time when you use it, when it's landing a crit. So really good stuff. Now, the next ability we have is Solar Barrage. And this is the ability that you could potentially change out for Procstat, or you could run the combination of Solar Barrage and Procstat, and you'd be changing out your defensive skill of Living Dark. Now, that is a really squishy way to go, and you'll be giving up a very good defensive skill to get the Procstat on this build. So it's up to you if you want to go that route, but it opens up that huge bomb potential. If you want to bomb like a 30-man Zerg, then you do kind of want the Procstat. But if you want to just bomb like a 5 to 10-man, this is totally fine for it. You'll get really good bombs, to be honest. You guys will see in the footage, we get some really nice smacks on the groups, and Templar performs well without Procstat for sure. Now, Solar Barrage is great because of that blast, and versus Procstat, Procstat will of course deal more damage, but Solar Barrage is just much more consistent, and that's why I like it. Pairing with the Grothdar, we get a lot of AoE pulse pressure on this build, and going into the jabs and our ultimate as well, we get a lot of damage. Now, the next ability we have is Crescent Sweep, and this is also very, very good for this build. It is pretty much one of, if not the best, single target burst ultimates in the game. It can proc the Burning Light as well. We've got a beautiful tooltip on it, the 10.4k tooltip here, 60% bonus on that, so 16k plus tooltip on our Crescent Sweep. Really, really nice stuff. And then you pulse afterwards, and the pulses can proc the Burning Light as well. This is just huge AoE pressure, all of this, and it's very important for this bomb build that we have a strong AoE ultimate like this. 72 ultimate for this, really, really cheap for it as well, so we can get it up and recast it if we get a few kills. And you guys will see in the footage when we close out the bombs, we just have the next ult up right away, and we're just delivering smacks. So taking a look at our back bar here, the first skill we have is Race Against Time. Very important that we have this on the build. We need that minor force buff for the maximum damage potential that we can get. Not only that, but this is nice for the movement speed buff outside of our mist form and the snare and immobilization immunity for 2 seconds. Really good stuff just for a non-mist form option for us to stay mobile if we don't want to just expend a huge amount of Magicka getting rid of those snares. Now, the next ability we have is Living Dark. This is where, like I said, I would recommend you put proc stat if you want to run it on this build. And the proc stat, like I said, will give you that huge bomb potential of those massive Zergs. You can still get a great smack on those massive Zergs, but having proc stat for those really big ones, I think, you know, especially if you do like World PvP 50v50 Zergs, then proc stat is going to be a great skill. But if you're playing this build kind of solo and stuff like that, I would definitely recommend using Living Dark here. Using the defensive skill is going to help you just deliver those smacks and just actually have the opportunity to get the bombs in the first place. The Living Dark, of course, is such a powerful heal over time. It heals you for 2,431 health, and this is on our back bar here. It's about 3k on our front bar every 0.5 seconds when we take direct damage. And, of course, it'll immobilize your opponent for 3 seconds if they hit you too. So really good for the healing, really good for the defensive utility. The combination of Living Dark and Mist Form is really dirty on the Templar, and it allows us to actually have some getaway on kind of a slower class here. And that brings us, of course, to Mist Form. This is going to be your oh crap cloak. On a bomb build, I think Mist Form, especially because we don't have stealth, is a must-have. It's the only way you will get out of those really bad situations where you really need to have that strong defensive utility. So while you're in your Mist Form, you're going to absorb up to 75% of incoming damage, but you'll have that movement speed bonus. You can't heal yourself, and your mag recovery is disabled, but nonetheless, it is going to be the best oh crap savior skill for this build. And you're immune to snare and immobilize, so it keeps you fast and mobile too, so you can get out of those dangerous situations. Now, the next skill that we have is Extended Ritual. Very important that we run this on the Templar and just this patch in general to have a purge. 5 negative effects removed from us when we use this ability, and it puts down that really nice heal over time. Our allies can activate the synergy to get a bit of a burst heal and remove all the negative effects from themselves if they're standing in the ring. Really nice for the Templar. Honestly, man, this is such a good ability. This patch, with all the dots going around, you've got to have a purge. And Templar, the mix of Extended Ritual and Living Dark makes them very, very strong defensively this patch. And yeah, they can deal with the dots fairly well, I think. And the purge is Mag Templar's biggest strength this patch. I definitely have to say that. And then moving on to the last ability here, we've got Channeled Focus. This is going to be a bit of our mag sustain for sure. 480 Magicka every 2 seconds, so the equivalent of 480 recovery, which is really nice. And it gives us our armor buffs. While we're standing in the circle, we get a little bit more armor as well. Just a great buff skill for the Templar all around, and a sustain skill in general. And then for our ultimate here, we've got Temporal Guard, the minor protection, and the teleport to where we were 4 seconds ago. The ultimate is just a good defensive choice, I think, especially because we have the speed. I am a Wood Elf on my Templar, so mixing that with the speed of the ultimate is really good, just because we can do a little bit more distance and then teleport back a little bit further. Nice stuff in that regard. If you want to run an offensive ultimate here, now, hear me out. We do have Crescent Sweep, and it is really hard to justify using another ult on this build other than Crescent Sweep because it is so powerful. But if you really wanted, you could actually go for the Frost Staff Ultimate too. And I have used this on a bomb build. Go for the Rage Morph. The Rage Morph is actually very strong, and the Frost Staff immobilizes enemies. Now, the Immobilize you could use to catch a group off guard and trap them in a really nasty, vicious death bomb. But, you know, most of the time, I do think that Crescent Sweep is going to be the better ultimate. So it's just if you want to run kind of that more exotic spec with proc stat as well and go for those really big bombs, then you could definitely go for the Elemental Rage and get that Immobilize on top too. Now, let's take a look at the champion points we got on this build. We got 44 Warlord and 2 in Sprinter. We just had a few points left over to put them in Sprinter here, but big focus on Warlord. We've got to break free, and, well, pretty much what's going to happen is you'll go in, try to bomb, you'll attack as much as you can, you'll get stunned, break the stun, and run away. So, yeah. Very important that we have the break free because they're going to chase you and stun you down afterwards. Looking at our next tree here, we've got 64 Mooncalf and 64 in Arcanist. Just focusing on both our sustains here. Both recoveries, of course, so important. We've got to have the mag sustain to get in, get out, and deal the damage, and the stam sustain for that as well. The important passive we get here, of course, is wind running, so a little bit more movement speed, and while we're sprinting, we get a little bit more recovery too. Now, taking a look at our next tree in the shadow, we've got 40 Shadow Ward and 56 Tumbling. You could do a 50-50 split between these two if you wanted. I focus more on Tumbling because I'm a Wood Elf, and Wood Elf gets the roll dodge passive, but it doesn't really matter. You could do the 50-50 split. It's probably the same thing anyway. It's really up to the user. If you find yourself blocking more than rolling, then definitely put a little bit more in Shadow Ward. Now, moving on to the blue tree, we've got 50 Spell Erosion, 49 Elemental Expert, and 51 in Elfborn. Nice even split here. Because we have that 50% crit rate, I think this is the best way to go. The important passives we get is Spell Precision for that little bit of spell crit. Arcane Well, I mean, we're bombing, so we actually can get some good usage out of this. But like I said in previous build videos when I talk about Magicka builds, you don't really get good usage out of this in PvP for the most part. Now, moving on to our next tree, I actually had changed this, but it didn't change or stay where I had put it. We have got 81 in Master at Arms and 2 in Shattering Blows. Now, just a big focus on Master at Arms for that direct damage increase. Our AoEs are direct damage, so this is very important for this build. The only damage over time that we have is Jabs, and we do have a few points for that because Jabs is very important. But in the Godplar build, I actually had points in Shattering Blows here and a little bit in Staff Expert. I should have put a few in Thaum. I actually hadn't thought about Jabs at all, so you guys are totally right from that build video. And in this one, this Magicka Templar build video, when we used Jabs, I did put the points in Thaum there, but we still want that Master at Arms for sure. We still get the off balance, thankfully, from our toppling charge too. Now, moving on to the next tree, 37 in Thaum, 15% additional damage for our damage over time effects, and that, of course, is going to be our Jabs. And moving on to the red tree here, we've got 61 Ironclad, 56 Resistant, and 10 in Spell Shield. Big focus on Ironclad Resistant to give us the critical resist and, of course, that direct damage reduction. I think both of these are absolutely fantastic for the style of build we're playing to just focus on these defenses. Our biggest weakness is going to be Burst, so this is just counter burst pretty much. Now, moving on to the next tree here, we've got 120 points total, so we do get the Unchained, even though we're not using a stam ability. But we've got 37 Hardy, 37 Elemental, 30 Light Armor Focus, and 16 in Thick Skin. So big focus on reducing just kind of all incoming damage, magical and physical. The Light Armor Focus to give us that physical resistance buff. If you want, you can actually take 10 points out of here and put them even into here to even out your physical spell resist. Now, the Thick Skin and the Quick Recovery portions, if you feel like you need a little bit more resistance against the dots, you could put the Thick Skin, more points in the Thick Skin. But to be honest, I think putting more points or even all of them in Quick Recovery is probably the better bet, just because Templar has such high healing power and a lot of heal over time on this build to counter the dots and the Strong Purge. So up to you guys what you want to do here. But, you know, those are my thoughts. And that is the build, ladies and gentlemen. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's jump right into that PvP commentary. And then for the first fight here, we actually have the same fight from the intro, but it is a much longer fight. We only showed you guys the first 40 seconds or so of this fight. But as you guys can see, the yellow are piling up on us here. And the first thing that we're going to do is just go into this corridor, and this is a big part of the reposition. And this is a big reason why I'm not using Procstat on this build. I mean, just getting this reposition to happen was so great, and we just jump on that opportunity to get a huge AoE smack on all these players in the corridor, and we bring 4 players down on the stack, almost the 5th one, and we just finish him up with the ultimate that is off, that is ready for us again after getting so many kills with the first initial bomb there. And yeah, that right there I think is a great reason why I say I don't like Procstat on this build. I mean, that was just a great momentary kind of opportune moment to hit the guys with the nice big smack, and if we were waiting for the Procstat cooldown, I just feel like we wouldn't have gotten that nice fluid hit. So I think that that's really important and really worth mentioning for this build. If you guys want to play it with Procstat, like I said, you can, but Procstat is just going to allow you to kind of wipe those larger and larger groups that are kind of stacking on flags and stuff like that. But as you can see here, we are trying to bring this enemy sorcerer down, and he's doing a great job defending himself with the unblockable, undodgeable streak. It's forcing us to keep our Eclipse Bubble up 100% of the time and actually play very defensive against them. We have pretty low HP, and if he gets us with a nasty stun that we can't stop with the block or a dodge roll, Well, we're going to get nuked down pretty hard by this Sork, so making sure to keep our Eclipse up and just go offensive on him as long as we got our buffs up on us. I'm just going to rebuff here as he streaks away, and we go for the gap close on top of him, get a stun there into our ultimate, into the jabs. We got the Grothdar going down as well, so I just stay on top of him with the gap closer there, and the Sork can only streak for so long. We eventually get him there and take him for his stones. And we just continue to search the sewers for more players here. We find this guy who's walking up the side of the stairs here through the tunnel. And he doesn't break the stun or anything, so we're just going to quickly poke him down and keep looking for yellow players here. Like I mentioned in the preface and, of course, during the build video, this build is not just great for dealing that big AoE smack, but it's also awesome in just a straight upfront fight. We're very, very powerful one-on-one, very powerful one-on-two, 1vx, so we can be very strong on this build. There you see, we jump right behind these guys, get a huge AoE blast with the ultimate there, and just finish off the first player there. He's not close enough to the enemy players to get our Vicious Death explosion, but like I said, we'll take the kills that we can get, and we're just going to kite back out of there using our sustain, using our mist, and reset our buffs at the top of this thing here. And they're all piled up at the top. Really great positioning again to get a nice big stack like that. We drop our ult, and a friendly red player also drops his ult. We got a Tether Bomber Nightblade there, and between the two of us, we just absolutely ransacked the side of that group. And now there are, I think, 3 yellow players left here, and we just take quite a bit of damage from the Ballista ult there. We're going to keep our Eclipse bubble up, reset our buffs by kiting out there, and just toppling charge back into the action. Get on top of this guy here, using our gap closer to prevent him from getting the res, hit him with our ultimate, and just nuke that poor guy down. The enemy Nightblade here going into stealth. I go for my AoE pulse there, and we don't pull the Nightblade out of stealth, so I just quickly turn, jump on top of this, I believe it's a Dragon Knight here, and we're just going to give her the poke down here with the friendly Nightblade. She's trying to out-heal it, but it's too much pressure for her, and she goes down, and then we've got 2 more yellow players that are left. I think they were just in the corridor there while we were fighting everyone else. A huge ultimate smack on that guy into the jabs, and we finished the last player off there with the friendly red Nightblade. Now moving on to our next clip here, we're just going to show off a little bit more bomb potential, but like I said, this build is great at just upfront fights too, so I think that's a great part about this build and the footage is that you guys get to see what it looks like to actually just play the build in and out of situations where we have an opportunity to get a good bomb. So even in like the one-on-one here, this guy's in stealth. Oh, the poor guy, we get a nice drop on him there, and unfortunately by the time he starts pounding his defenses, we already have him very low HP. We're just going to finish him off with the ultimate into the jabs there. The enemy Dragon Knight here puts a little bit of damage into me, but I want to just kite him out a bit. I go for the staff heavy, but he ends up just kiting out a bit the other way too. I don't really want to engage with the blue because there are so many yellow here, and it's never a good idea, I think, to piss off both factions when there's a lot of enemy players around. 2 lower level players here. We just quickly finish them off with the gap closer. Actually, 3 lower level players. Oh my gosh, the poor guys. Our jabs absolutely cutting through them like butter, and now we've got an enemy Sork here. We hit him with a massive ultimate there into the jabs, and it's just so much AoE pressure, even when we're running the bomb spec and we don't have all the extra damage if we were running something else other than Vicious Death. We just have so much firepower on this build, and we're really just putting a lot of hurt into these poor guys. Bring down another yellow player there that just wanders out, probably his first time in PvP. He's very low level there, and we're just going to keep looking for yellow players here. Now I head towards the spawn because I do see more yellow coming out of here, but it's the same guys that we had just killed earlier, and I'm just going to throw a few more pokes into them. And the reason that I just killed them again is because, well, I'm by myself, and I know for a fact that if we kill these guys once or twice, guaranteed more yellow are going to start pouring out of this thing. So we just keep the pressure up on this Sork. The Sork actually has some pretty decent damage, and he's got a lot of undodgeable, but we hit him with a really nasty ultimate combo there. This guy jumps off the edge. As soon as he does, we stun him into the jabs, and he goes down right away. And yeah, normally the sewers don't have so many players, but this is, of course, during the IC event, so it attracts a lot of people into the sewers. So we do get some nice action here, and we got 2 more yellow players that have wandered out here. Another yellow player up top, and more coming out the gate as well. You see this guy come out the gate. I go for the ultimate off the animation cancel there into the jabs after the dodge roll. I was actually expecting the ult to finish him off, but he was not as squishy as I thought he would be. And just keep on fighting here. This guy comes around the corner, cursing us up. We quickly purge off those negative effects. We got a lot of dots coming on us here, and we just do right away exactly what we got to do on the Templar. Purge off those effects, go for the burst heal, back into the purge, and we just missed out of there and just break some distance, easily mitigating the dot damage from all those players there. Really scary when we get jumped by a lot of players like that if we let them dot us up too hard, and we just jump on top of them here, go into the ultimate, but they respond right away with quite a bit of pressure here, and we're forced out of this location here. Just going to reset my buffs again, purge off all those dots, and then go for the jabs behind these guys here. Try to get a nice gap close, but again, these guys counter with a lot of ultimate pressure of their own. They go for the Elemental Rage off the Destro Staff, and we've got a lot of yellow players converging on us. So I just go for a little bit of a kite here, allow them to just kind of kite out a little bit themselves and just spread out a little bit. But the yellow players are doing a good job just sticking on top of each other. Of course, we've been fighting them a little bit, so they know kind of what our firepower is like. But here we catch 2 players on the doorway here. We get good pressure into one of them. We get a good kill off on that player there. The Vicious Death Explosion going off, allowing us to get the pressure into the next player to finish that guy off as well. We're just going to come back around the corner here, reset our buffs, and we just keep kiting around this Sorcerer, just kind of flexing a little bit of our speed there as he turns his camera around, and we just keep rotating behind him. He's pounding his damage shields there. We finish him off with the jabs. Another Sword comes around the corner here. We hit him with the stun and then go for our rebuff here as we don't have our buffs up, and we just stun the next guy here, stun the next guy after that, go for the jabs, another kill into the Vicious Death Explosion. But unfortunately, we get ult dumped by the enemy players as they come around the corner there, and we eventually go down. And finally, guys, for our last clip here, we've got some more just general pick-in fights against a lot of players. And that's probably what you'll be doing on a bomb build like this anyway. You're looking for the larger groups to fight. Here we see I just engage with a few yellow. We managed to pull a few into this corridor. We got 3 players here. We've got our pulse from our AoE ultimate too, and we just go for the jabs. 3 players go down to the Vicious Death Explosions there, and we just jump on top of the last guy here, go for our ultimate again as it is back up there, and just reset my buffs before we continue to apply pressure to this guy. Probably should have closed the finish with the jabs there, as he does manage to squirrel away quite a bit here, but we just keep reapplying our AoEs, pulling him out again with the AoE there, and we jump on top of him with the gap closer, finish him off, and just heal ourselves as we drop down there, taking a bit of fall damage, a little bit of a risky play, and we're just going to turn and jump on top of this Templar, go right away into our ultimate, but she is low HP, but is very, very tanky. Just not taking much damage from our attacks at all there, so we just reset our buffs, and a single yellow player, unfortunately, overextending here. We go for the gap closer on him, but he's got decent healing power, and he kites his way back towards the rest of the yellow group. I jump on top of the lower HP player there, but I don't commit to the offensive pressure, and we go right away into the mist form. The yellow don't punish me hard by attacking super aggressively, but I did get into the mist form quickly, so it does kind of deter them from wanting to chase me down, because they know the mist form can be tough to deal with. And here we catch a guy in a bad position. Oh my gosh, we pick him for a few stones here. Just getting quite a few stones in our pocket. This enemy Nightblade jumping on top of us. We get him with a nice stun off our gap closer there. Hit him with the jabs, and just keep the jab pressure up here. Finish him with the ultimate before he can get too close to the group there. I know that was a little bit overkill, but I didn't want him to get healed up. And now we're just going to engage with whoever comes around the corner here. Put a decent amount of pressure into that first player there, but I right away missed away because I don't want to get trampled down by that big group. So I am going to let the rest of the clip play out for you guys. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, hit that like button. If you guys are new here, hit that subscribe button. I create regular ESO content, so be sure to stick around for more. If you guys are interested in sending in any footage to be featured on the channel, be it in the top 5 PvP battles or a build to be featured, you can send that to KristoferESO@hotmail.com. More information down in the description below. If you guys want to keep up to date with me when I'm streaming and other shenanigans just going on in my life, you can always give me a follow on Twitter. If you guys are interested in live gameplay from me, or you just want to be part of the top 5 live experience, you can check out my Twitch below as well. We are sponsored by What the Fast. They're a VPN for gamers. They give me better ping to my favorite games, and they're free to try for the first 30 days. No credit card to sign up, so no harm, no foul if it doesn't give you guys what you're looking for. And last but not least, if you guys really love this stream and you want to help support it, you can always become a patron on Patreon. Without your help, I would not be able to do this job that I love so much. So thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys so much for supporting if you choose to do so. And I'll see you next time. Have a great night, everybody.